I struggle trying to learn Spanish. First of all, I'm from the U.S., but I'm not from a place where Spanish is really even spoken. I'm from Michigan, Detroit to be exact. So I'm not from places like California, New York, or Florida, or Texas, where there's a large Latino community floating around. I didn't grow up around that. So let's get that straight. I didn't come from a Spanish-speaking background or anything like that. And in school, the only Spanish I can recall being exposed to was maybe in middle school, learning basic stuff like hola, adios, and uno, dos, tres. That's about it. So again, I didn't come from a Spanish-speaking background, and nobody in my family or immediate surroundings spoke Spanish. No Spanish-speaking friends, none of that. So yeah, I struggled. And I started learning Spanish when I visited Colombia for the first time several years back. And the reason I started learning Spanish is because I didn't want to be just another gringo there. Another person from the U.S. who only knew English and was only expected to know English. Because everyone around me, everybody from somewhere else besides the U.S., they at least knew one other language, maybe two, maybe three. But see, I was the only one who only knew English. And see, the thing is, in this global day and age, this global society that we're living in right now, maybe in the past, as U.S. citizens, we thought we were ahead because we have this universal language, this global language, English. Oh, everybody wants to learn English. Yeah, but everything is different now. Now with the internet age and the globalization of our world, and not to mention AI, the world has changed. Now, a lot of U.S. citizens are finding themselves lagging behind in the world, behind their bilingual and trilingual counterparts. Now everything is in reverse. The world has been flipped on its head. Now people who are bilingual are getting more jobs, more opportunities, and earning more money. And a lot of people who only know English are getting passed over for their bilingual counterparts. So you see, the world has changed. And no longer is it good enough just to know English. Learning Spanish is very beneficial, and it can upgrade your life just like that. I know. I'm living proof. I've seen the doors that it has opened for me. I've seen the enrichment that it has added to my life. And I want to transfer that over to you without all the struggle and confusion that I had to go through. See, I refined my Spanish in the pandemic. Yeah, I was called up in Colombia during the pandemic for all of 2020. And I don't need to say what the pandemic was, what the global pandemic was. If you've been around for the past several years, then you know exactly what I mean by pandemic. So yeah, I was caught up in Colombia during that time and wound up being stuck there for an entire year. And everything had faded to black. It was just me. Before it all went down, I had my gringo friends around. I could speak English with them, laugh, chit chat, smiles, everything. Good times. But then the pandemic hit and everybody scattered. Some people left, some people just disappeared. Everybody went on lockdown and isolation. The world was crazy. And during that time, I had to spend a lot of time alone. A lot of time alone just hanging in there. And even when I tried to get out and go back to the U.S., all the flights were locked down. So they weren't letting anybody leave out of Colombia. They weren't letting anybody back into Colombia. So even people who were natives of Colombia, who were somewhere else when everything hit the fan, they couldn't come back to Colombia. I couldn't leave out of Colombia. So it was just crazy. Curfews, being told when you can go out and when you had to be back in. Getting sprayed at, down, and around with disinfectant or who knows what. The world was a mess. And even when things kind of let up a bit for the flights to start reopening, I considered going back to the States, but the virus was spreading even faster there. Things were even more out of control. And on top of that, with all of the craziness going on in the U.S., with the racial riots, I said yo, I'm just going to go ahead and stick it out here in Colombia. But little did I know that I would be in Colombia, stuck in those types of conditions for an entire year due to some mystery virus that just kept prolonging. I thought maybe this stuff would be over in another week or two. Then maybe another month. But then another month passed. And then another month passed. And it just turned into a nightmare. And during that darkness, I really had to soul search. I really had to think a lot. But most importantly, I had to survive. Because like I said, all my gringo friends, they had all scattered. So I was really on my own. And after a certain point, I was one of the few or only foreigners that I could see around. So I really had to learn how to communicate and upgrade the little Spanish that I had. And I needed to optimize that fast. I didn't have time to go through some course teaching me the little cutesy stuff like the cat jumped over the moon or the pig wore a blue dress. I didn't have time for that. I didn't have time to waste fooling around with some slow app taking me the long route to learning Spanish. I needed the shortcut ways. I needed the short circuit ways. I needed to survive now. Hey, yo, that's just like somebody on fire. Somebody on fire, they ain't got time for you to say, hold on a minute. Let me finish this call. Hold on a minute. I'll be with you in a minute. If somebody on fire, they need help now, not later. That's where I was with Spanish. I needed to get it now. I needed to communicate now. I needed to eat now. If I wanted to make it through that time and come out on the other side, I needed to find a way to communicate and survive now. So that's when I started figuring out tactics to accelerate my Spanish learning. And that is when my Spanish really started to refine. My ears started to perk up like a wolf because I had to hear through people wearing masks. See, it's one thing trying to learn Spanish without all those complications. But imagine trying to learn Spanish and somebody talking to you through a mask like this, you know? So I had to develop like super satellite ears. And I really had to listen in order to make out what people were saying. I had to figure it out. I didn't have anybody else to fall back on. It was just me. So my senses became really sharp. I started hearing like I've never heard before. Started seeing like I've never seen before. I started analyzing everything around me, the environment, the signs, the people, everything. And if I couldn't hear something well, I'd try to combine their mannerisms with what they were saying to try to make sense of it all, whatever I could do. So yeah, that's when things really started to refine. So you can say I was braised by the fire and I rose from the ashes. So I say all of that to say this. I am highly qualified to teach you Spanish in 21 days, survival Spanish, because I have lived it. I've been there as a native English speaker with no Spanish background, and I did it. And I want to teach you to do the same. And the way that I'll do that is by giving you things that you're just not going to find in your average Spanish textbook or course. A fresh approach, different information, a new way of looking at things. I didn't find it, so I created it. And now I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you because I understand the frustrations, the struggles of trying to learn Spanish. Look, Spanish, it's not the easiest thing to learn, especially the way it's taught. But I can get you there in half the time or less than it took me.